So, good morning to everybody. This is Stefano Mazzarino, Geopolitics from Italy. Today we have like a fast plan of roundtable, but it's very interesting because it's with war in Ukraine and Cheng Wei Lai, and we will waiting also for Sadullah Forense that already came in. So let's see if it will be able. That is my friend from Afghanistan. Actually, is out of Afghanistan, but he was born there, lived there for a long time. Sadullah, if you can hear us, okay.
Yeah, I can hear you, guys. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I
we
can hear you.
Cannot see, but we can hear you. So it's perfect. Let me put Chang on the top, so we have like the two camera on and like the two without down. So for today, let me bring for you a little bit of slides just to analyze the last economical data that we have available. The source it's CREA, that is like one website with a lot of interesting data about oil and gas and the analysis of weekly export of Russia and other countries. So let's make a fast check about it. So we can see like the analysis between the January 2022 and now, like 1st of July. We can see that the pipeline gas, it's mainly zero now. It's degrading a lot, but we will see the data from the single country, so we can make an analysis. The only material that is still unchanged, it's about crude oil, but we already talked about it. The analysis about crude oil, it's interesting because it's the only thing that is still in export to India, China, Pakistan, Egypt, whatever. But it's the material with the less, let's say, profit, because the most of the profit was like in refined materials, not about crude oil. So we can see that the coal is stable, and oil products and chemical, it's a little bit less. LPG, LNG, it's very, very low. What we can see about another interesting data, that the only problem that it's like to bring these materials through Navy, it's that you have to make an insurance of the float, and this insurance normally it's located in a G7 countries or Norway, and so it's very difficult to bring it like to international market without this insurance. So we can see that also the quantity of the crude oil that was in the top in March 2022, about let's say the quantity was like 300, like in like this chart. Now it's less than 100, so it's 3 times less than 1 year and a half ago. Who is buying? Who is still buying this material? We can see that the first buyer is China, but in China we can see that let's say 80% of the import for Russia, it's crude oil via pipeline or seaborne. So it's with low profit for Russian Federation. The second is India. We can see that over 90% of the import of India is crude oil, pipeline, or seaborne. Turkey, but it's still with pipeline. The pipeline is connected like with the eastern part of Turkey, and we have European Union. Why we have still European Union? We can see pipeline gas. It's like the two states that are still available, like to import via pipeline, where that is like Hungary, Slovakia, because they are without sea connection, so they're not able to import from anybody else. So it was like a permission that was made by the European Union to these two countries. And South Korea, as Chang said, that it's still importing like from Russian Federation, but the quantity, if compared with China and India, it's very low. Another analysis that it's interesting, it's about the pipelines. We can see that, let's say 90% of the original pipeline is going from Russian Federation to west, not to east. To east, we have only Power of Siberia and actually Power of Siberia too, but the main problem is that the field that it's going to east, it's not rich like the Siberian field. So also the quantity that is exportable by pipeline to east, it's nothing compared to the quantity that could be exported to west. Other interesting data about China. Let's see the quantity that was changed also before the war. We can see that something is changing also about priorities of China, because it's interesting that there is very few rumors about what is happening between Turkmenistan and China, but for me it's very important because we're discussing a new huge project, a pipeline that is going from Turkmenistan directly to China without passing through Russia. And we can see that in the pipeline gas, the biggest quantity that it's imported before October 22, so not far away. It was from Turkmenistan. It was not from Russia. Russia, it's brown. Turkmenistan, it's green. The import price also, we can see that Turkmenistan, it was like the middle price of the import. And let me go after. Okay, Russia-China formula versus European gas prices. We can see what was like the difference between agreement of a free market that is like let's say the TTF, that was the quoted gas made in Amsterdam, that was the prices connected to the European let's say gas price, and the little brown down the line that it's the China's price. We can see that didn't change for like 3 years, the prices that was like sold to China. So it was completely out of the market price. But now we can see that also the European prices return back before July 21. So return back a lot in a short price. Last few slides, and then we will talk about and a little bit of chit chat. Also, something connected more to Ukraine, but we can talk about it. This is like the ruble change, and this we can see. This was ruble change with euro. We can see this one. It was exchange with euro and dollar. And normally, like in the basic of economy, we can see that when you have a strong currency, except for yuan, and Cheng can explain to us, because the yuan is not freely exchangeable internationally. It's very, let's say, powerful, controlled by the Bank of China, and it's not like, let's say that the Chinese money cannot go out from China like freely. In this case, we can see that the price of the exchange price that was at this position in January, so it was over 80. Now the actual price and the actual exchange, it's, let's say, I can say to you, it's over 100. So if we remember before, at the beginning, when it was like a little bit, let's say, blocked the exchange of ruble or whatever, the ruble was 50, the exchange. In 1 year, it's over 100. And the Bank of Russia is saying, no, but it's okay for our export, blah, blah, blah. But 1 year ago, it was, no, it was okay, our economy is strong. So one or one other, the position, it's a little bit different, but the economical situation now, it's getting, let's say, worse and worse. Another interesting data, it's the level of unemployment in Russia. It's very, very low. Why? Not because there is a lot of job, but because there is less manpower. So you don't have the people for work. So the level of unemployment, it's very low because there is not big request of work, but low offer of workers. So let's return back. So this was like a little bit like 6-7 minutes of introduction about the actual economical situation. Telling you firstly the situation in Europe. It seems that the country where I'm calling that is like Italy was with the biggest results in economic in the G7 in the last 2 years. Now, actually, it seems that the increasing of the GDP it's slowing down. So it seems that we reach the point of the I guess GDP, and I guess let's say people enforcing work and whatever. But everything is connected to a lot of interesting factors because the labor is not well paid. So we have high employment, but with low salaries. And so not everything is gold if it's shining. So what I wanted to say. Actually, I'm curious of listening, your opinion about it. Maybe, thank you. If we can start a little bit with war in Ukraine because you have to go at 2. About your opinion about economical situation in Russia or war in Ukraine, if you can say something to us about also the situation technically in Liman, Kupiansk, with a lot of rumors about 100,000 Russian troops prepared for another counteroffensive if the attack of the Kerch bridge it's useful or it's useless. What do you think? What could happen in the next weeks about Ukraine and the economical situation?
First of all, thank you for inviting me. Pleasure being here. So first, let's talk about a little bit Russian economy. It's definitely getting worse, and I think the formal numbers that's coming from Russian Statistical Bureau are basically not reflecting reality, to say it mildly. And as they say, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there's statistics, and that's probably the case of that, because all of other data that doesn't support simply growing GDP and everything, because you showed that natural gas export is pretty much dead. It was a huge chunk of economy. I don't know, like was generating, let's say, 10-15% of GDP, something like that. Like if that's gone, maybe even 20. I don't have exact numbers, but like it's a significant chunk. That's gone. You cannot, and not to mention that like there's like auto manufacturing. Many of them are still working at like bare minimum. There's clearly, if you look at the like actual economic activity, it doesn't add up to what they paint. And the other important part, the only sector that I still think is still sort of working is construction in Russia. That's still there. It's not growing, but it's not cratering, like for example manufacturing and stuff like that. And then what happens is, the most telling is the revenues or tax collection by the Russian state is falling tremendously. They essentially cannot finance them, and they resort basically to what's called windfall taxes. They invent windfall taxes on businesses randomly to basically extract money, and there's very clearly there's also issuing of new sort of credit money going on, because inflation is going up in Russia very clearly, and that's why you see Russian ruble is also going down. I mean, you saw it to euro, to US dollar. By the way, there is no difference. It's the same because they pegged. So what I'm trying to say is, you can look either at euro or US dollar, doesn't matter, because the other one literally, there is exchange they pegged using the exchange rate between US dollar and euro. So, and I think from my understanding, US dollar is sort of like the primary tool, and then euro exchange rate to euro is basically derived, or might be they change, but so it's firmly on the negative course, Russian economy. There is no question about it. It doesn't mean that Russia is going to collapse though tomorrow or in a month or two. That's a important distinguish. It's like sort of like they are wounded, but they are not dying by any means. Russia can continue in this state for, I don't know, for very long. Let's put this way. That's the most important part. Even I mentioned all of these negatives. It doesn't mean that okay, Russia will collapse in a month or two or three economically. So they will continue running. And in terms of this unemployment, it's in a way kind of like a funny number. It's just Russia, and this is probably not very well known outside of Russia. Um, um, it's very kind of like a police state, Russia. So they have like, I don't know, the numbers were between like 5 to 6 million, up to 5 to 6 million of mostly men in various police-like, how to say, units or organizations, because they have, Russian guards, which is militarized police. Then they have, Minister of Internal Affairs, which is actually police. There are multiple like smaller like organizations. So, in a way, this, this police bloc sucks up the control apparatus, sucks a lot of people in Russia. So if you release those, and there will be eventually pressure because the state budget is not collecting enough money. And oh, by the way, and then I forgot to mention, they have still huge cushion from the savings that they had from the times, this national wealth fund, whatever it's called, like I don't remember exact name, but basically equivalent to whatever national wealth funds everybody, the exporters of energy have. And so they have money there. So the collapse of Russian economy is not happening anytime soon in the way that we sort of imagine. Yes, it's in a bad shape, but they can plug along in that way. So that's a situation with Russia. Ukrainian economy, I mentioned this before, totally dead. The only way Ukraine survives is through money from the West, basically. And it's actually kind of interesting. It's almost ironic. The exchange rate. So Ukrainian hryvnia actually strengthened relative to US dollar and euro because so much money was temporarily pumped into Ukraine. So that's quite ironic. But because it clearly shows how this pure financial moves totally don't reflect reality on the ground, the real economy. So it may optically appear that Ukraine has a strong economy because the currency is strengthening, and the this FX reserves of Ukrainian central bank are the highest in the past 12 years. But otherwise, economy is essentially dead, and there is no this police apparatus in Ukraine, unlike Russia, where sort of to create employment opportunity for people, which is, it's not really employment. It's basically universal basic income kind of like type of situation, effectively. And then in terms of the situation on the front line, I don't think this is Russian offensive. I don't think in Kupiansk area. It got very thin there on Ukrainian side, and Russian side basically attacked, and it was successful in terms of it's the tactical success in my view. It's not, there's no, but on either side there's no ability to do, first of all, like proper offensive how they should be done. and because of that, defense is too, like, there's a huge advantage in defense, exactly like World War One. So there's no, you need to have skilled soldiers, need to skilled command, you need to have excellent organization. Neither Russia nor Ukraine has that. It's a, I would describe this as a war of the peasant armies of the, let's say, 15th century, something along those lines. So it's basically degraded into basically like medieval warfare in many respects. Like, yes, they use equipment from, you know, from 20th century, but how it's being used is essentially like medieval warfare, and that's a whole situation in terms of fighting there. I don't think Russia has any incentive actually to attack at this moment, because they just want to basically paint Ukraine as a failed offensive, incapable, just kind of like, push this narrative: Ukraine is incapable. You investing all of this money in Ukraine and it's just being wasted. They couldn't even do successful offensive, and that's the biggest victory for Russia from all perspective.
What I wanted to ask to you, because I was talking with a lot of friends, like military, like Italians, huh? And they said to me that actually, like their point of view, it's that the approach of the two armies. Let's say that in their point of view, it's not mine. It's that let's say that the Gerasimov approach and strategy, it's not super focused and save lives on the front. Like I don't know, something that Western attack. I'm not talking about Ukraine. I'm talking about how is acting normally, like NATO forces or Western forces are not able to make this type of attack with a lot of losses without taking care, only to take one point or one advantage or something that can be used in propaganda. So do you think that, I don't know, the approach is something like this, where one part or the other, it's like, I don't know, taking more care about the troops and everything, it's slowing down because I don't know, the defense in the southern France is I don't know, very good, and the Ukrainian could lost a lot of people, and so they're not advancing for this reason, or few supplement, or I don't know, other reasons, because we are talking about it 1 year and a half, and I don't know the front, if we can check, except Kherson and Kharkiv, didn't change so much in the last year, not so much. So how, in your opinion, this different approach can influence the results on the front?
So, but the approach is the same by both sides. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
There's complete disregard of human life. It's a sort of old Soviet tradition, and then let's say go back Russian Empire tradition, and it all goes back to Mongol times. So it's all kind of like basically, uh, you know, in the if you really drill down, it's Mongol tradition, where it's complete disregard for the troops, for people, for the soldiers. You just need to achieve no matter what, and it's mindless achievement where feedback loop is not working. So you just you're throwing people at the same problem without changing either tools or approach, basically, and expecting the same result. So basically, as definition of insanity, right? Doing the same, expecting different results. So that's exactly what's happening by Russian side and by Ukrainian side, and you can see this on display when either side attempts to do offensive, because offensive is the most difficult sort of tactical maneuvering, or the strategic maneuvering, and so you can see all of the failures right away, and it doesn't work. So it didn't work for Russia, it didn't work for Ukraine. The only reason Russia lost that Kupiansk, Balaklia area, and the same for Kherson, is because they were stretched too thin. They were not sending replenishment troop-wise, so the line simply become too thin. So it's just collapsed, not because there was a strategic sinking on Ukrainian side or skills of soldiers. Simply they were absolutely outnumbered, and that's it. And they just and plus in Kherson, a bridgehead case, also the logistically they were cut off. So that's what I'm saying is there's no true victory from Ukrainian, like it's not a victory due to skill. It's a victory due to the literally war of attrition in a local case, and Ukraine won that because Russian political top did not want to do mobilization in Russia, and they don't want to do it. They will need to do second round sometime soon if this goes the way it goes, and they don't want to do it. So again, this may happen again. This on a sort of local level somewhere, whichever front line, if Russia does not replenish their troops, and that's a strategy that sort of effectively Ukrainian side is using, but it's a terrible strategy, right? It's just because it's using people to win territories, and if you look in the long run, if Russia really wants to continue fighting, this will lead to disaster for Ukraine. Simply, Ukraine has lower population. That's all it is. And in terms of this Crimea breach, the attack makes sense if there is offensive and you actively trying to achieve cut off Russian troops and everything. Otherwise, it's just, I don't know. There's no military purpose for that in how it's being done at the moment. So it's just okay. So they, Ukraine side blew up this section. It will be fixed in whatever 2-3 months, and then that's it. And so what's just PR, basically propaganda purposes, but propaganda doesn't lead to anything. It actually, if anything, it leads to defeat, and that's a problem.
No, it's interesting for me. Like I don't know. I'm still talking with a lot of friends, both sides, and let's say that I don't know. I think that also in the Russian side, talking with regular people, something is changing because it's getting longer than we were expecting. And as you said, probably also the government could be a little bit afraid to lose the control if they make like the second round of mobilization. But as you know, like in Russia, there is like now this application. I don't remember the name, but we'll find it. That it's like mandatory. We have it in Italy also. That it's called EO, and where like the public administration can send you official communication to you, and it seems that like the potential mobilization could be made not via official letter, paper letter bring from the police or military office to you, but in a digital way. So I don't know, but I think that
No, yes, it is. The law has been passed, I think, in April. So yes, it's absolutely. You have your own account, and what they made is like, regardless whether you check that account or not, it's your problem to check that account.
Yes.
In some ways, in some ways, I think it's fair. I mean, it's not, like it's your responsibility to check your online account, unless you live somewhere in taiga where there's no internet. Then
but
sure.
what interesting
but for Moscow,
is,
most of the Russia, it's fair. I'm not saying if it's it's a totally different question. It's not fair war. It's not the whole thing. But organizationally, they're doing the right thing. And I would say Ukraine should have done the same thing organizationally.
What I wanted to say to you is that this could be a tool to, let's say, make some threat, indirect threat, to all the Russians that flew abroad. Like, because with this system, let's say you can stay in Uzbekistan, Georgia, whatever you want, but if you receive this and you don't answer, you lose your direct, like your rights and everything about being a Russian citizen in the Russian Federation. You are like a deserter. So
Sure, but you probably already are. You already made up your mind, anyways. If you are in Georgia.
no, I agree, but let's say
So
that
I don't think you can, these people already pretty determined. They know, or Turkey, there's a lot of Russians in Turkey as well.
yeah. But
But they already made up their mind. They not participate. They're very clear. I'm not participating in this, and they can afford to do that because they have skills that are in demand on the international market. So that's why. And then Russian government understands that because they wanted to slap on them, like I think like 30% tax on their earnings outside, but then they changed their mind because they realized that they're not going to get anything at all. Now they're getting, let's say, whatever, 14% there or something like that. So it's better to get something than completely nothing. And they realize that they will sort of completely made up their mind we're not ever coming back to Russia. And Russia, in just for everybody to understand, is in very bad demographic shape. The same as Ukraine. Ukraine is actually even worse, but Russia is in bad demographic situation overall, and being there for a long time. The only reason Russian population is not going down is because it's basically sucking up population. And at first, it was mostly ethnic Russians or Russian-speaking population from all former Soviet Union was moving to Russia since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Now that is gone. They sucked up everyone who can and wanted to go there. Now they basically, sucking up, non-Russian population from the mostly Central Asian countries.
Yeah.
Right. So similar, like let's say US and Mexico, right? Sort of like similar, like Europe and people from Syria or from Africa or whatever they come to. They coming, they're not really invited. In this case, they kind of invited. It's more sort of probably than closer Mexico and US.
What I'm seeing, but it's last. I wanted to ask something also to Cheng, but what I'm seeing and what I'm afraid of about this war that more it's going on and over. It seems to me that let's say now we have let's say as my national government is making agreement with European Union about Tunisia. It's not very well known like in the international market. I'm sure that Cheng doesn't know about it, but the problem is that Tunisia government it's going to collapse because they have a lot of economical problems, and it's the border with Italy. It's about I think less than 100 kilometers, because we have one small island on the south that it's the southern border of the European Union that it's called Lampedusa, and it's very easy to go there, and it's easier than go to Greece or Spain or whatever, and there is this push from like the Italian Prime Minister to have like to take a look not only to the eastern border but also to the southern border. What I'm let's say it's a provocation that I'm giving to you all. We can talk about it. It seems to me that in a very cynic way, all the armored things, all the material things that were bringing Ukraine was like our second choices, like not the first quality material and blah blah blah. And it seems like to cleaning the Western warehouse, and magically we are starting to buy new stuff, except for some things very new, like some tea from Italy and France, like their defense that was very, very new. But I think that we gave them only two, but everyone was I think, the cost was over 400 million euro, only one. And everything that was from US, Patriot, Bradley, whatever, it's minimum 30 years old materials. It's not new. and for sure better than the Soviet era weapons, but still not new materials. Probably, let's say, afraid that this material was taken, or in another cynic point of view, could be better immigration from Ukraine as, let's say, workers than from Northern Africa. I'm very cynic, but it also these people that went out from Ukraine, it's in Europe mainly, and it's like with lower salaries expectation, because I don't know what in Ukraine, do you know like how much is the salary in Ukraine, but the average I think it's less than 400 euro, something like this.
Well, that's a formal, but really, what I would say, because in Ukraine, at least half of the economy is informal. Like people just don't pay taxes because if you pay, they're insanely high. So essentially, you won't have anything. So the I would say it's between $500 and $800. That's
Perfect.
sort of like it. This band captures majority of people what they earn. Let's put this.
Okay, let's say it's 5,800, but without taxes because it's in black.
Yeah, they don't pay the so that's what
Okay.
they earn. They did, yes.
So let's say that it's less than $10,000 for a year.
Sure.
Okay. So if we compare to Italy, like average, now I think that it's over $35,000 for sure with taxes. But if we compare the minimum, it's the double salary that they had in Ukraine, or 3 times. So if let's say you have to catch like let's say labor, and I repeat, it's a cynic way of what I'm thinking. Could be easier to integrate Ukrainian people in the European Union or Tunisian or sub-Saharan Africans.
Well, I don't know much about Tunisian, so I hard for me to
Let's
say.
say from Niger or from
Yes,
Sudan.
well, definitely there is bigger gap. There's no question about that. And I
Because
do agree with what you're saying. Is a lot of this migration that's happening. That's sort of like politically everybody's like no, like, or they basically they say no, but really what's happening, it's happening for economic reasons. It's a basically big business in each country, in especially in Germany, is pushing government, we need more workers, and in the US the same. So, and in Russia, by the way, the same, because
no, but
now they're building in Russia multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-ethnic society. It's the same. So you see, there's the same kind of like approach. We need more labor. Let's get it, and then present it politically. We're building multi-ethnic, multicultural societies everywhere, but really, it's all driven by the big businesses that really need labor. And you all know that in Europe, it's a all dying population. The same, by the way, in Ukraine, and even in in Russia, the same. The same is actually in the US as well. Not as
yeah,
bad as it is in Europe, but it's also bad there. So it's all driven, like it's all for economic reasons, and it's just being presented politically as some kind of whatever. There is a story invented to cover this up, and to go on this. Germany was sort of like a black hole that was sucking up pretty much all of Ukrainian labor even before the war. So they already sucked up everything from like Balkans, right? Like like for example, I don't think people know. Like for example, in Albania, 35% of population left. Can you imagine this?
yeah, but in
35% of population.
well, but let's say about what I wanted to say to you is that if we check like the immigration in Italy, this is important because Germany and Italy are very similar, because
Right, right.
50% of the all soil products of the European Union it's made in Italy and Germany. So I think the others it's a little bit irrelevant in numbers because French have like more agriculture but less industrial. Industrial in Europe. It's Italy and Germany. And Italy and Germany, it's very well interconnected because if you buy an Audi, let's say 80% of the components are made in Italy and assembled in Germany. It's not made in Germany. What I wanted to say to you is that it's very interesting for me that this thing about the demographic, let's say, decrease in Russia, that it's something very interesting if we compare USA and SSSR and Soviet Union. In the 80s, United States have less than 200 million people, and Soviet Union had over 350. So now,
No, that's not true. So the Soviet Union had, they had both very close to 240, 250 million people population.
sorry,
In the late
like
80s, they were basically going neck to neck, and it was also always competition in terms of population. But there was no significant. They were very close in size, in population size, both countries.
what I wanted to say is that about the, let's say, the demography. It was what I wanted to say to you. It was not, let's say, 60s, 70s, like the difference was big, and at the collapse of Soviet Union was 300 millions, and now we have
No. I'll I was still studying in the Soviet school. I tell you by heart, it was like
population
248 million
19.
people or something. I can give you the, Russia was 148, Ukraine was 52,
No,
Belarus
okay, but
was
let's
14
say,
or 15. Like the rest of it was like 2, 3, 4, 5 million people. Probably like
okay.
Uzbekistan.
Yeah.
Kazakhstan was another 15.
I was
So
checking.
it's just doesn't add, like I can just tell you it doesn't add up.
No, it's okay. Let's say the official data that was in 1991. I don't know if it was fake, but it was 294,147,000 people. So this is like from the demographics. I don't know if it was true or fake, but what I wanted to say is that if we check in the European Union now, outside UK we put out, but it's at least over 400 millions. It was about 500 millions, 480 with UK. And I don't know it's the immigration in Italy, like to share what you said about Germany. And Asadullah maybe can talk also about, because it went like in Norway, and he can explain a little bit about it. Immigration in Italy, it was before the biggest group before the entering in Romania in the European in Schengen in the European Union, not Schengen, was Albanians. Before was from Morocco, now is Romanians. But the interesting things about the immigration in Italy is that at the moment it's we are a state where people, it's like going up north, passing to Italy and going to France, UK, Germany, like just to meet their own families. And the part that it's stopping by is the people that have already families here. So it's another interesting thing. It's about the most part of the small companies in Italy. It's, let's say, a big part. It's created by immigrants. So it's not only workers that for them it's enough, like just to come and work. It's like people that want to invest themselves and be an entrepreneur and whatever. So Asadullah, if you can, if you are here with us, because I saw you, but your mic is off. If you can say to us something about your experience that you were in, because it was living and working for the Norwegian embassy in Kabul. Asadullah, can
Yes,
you hear?
yes,
We were
yes.
talking a little bit about this immigration in Europe. If you can explain a little bit your experience, like from Afghanistan, your experience in Norway, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like immigration is. I think turning into a sort of national security issue to the Europe. And as far as I see, I'm totally agree with our friend who just described that it's mainly economically driven. And I think yes, for certain security reasons from Afghanistan, people do immigration, to Europe and other regional countries such as Turkey and like Iran and Pakistan. But I think the main reason is just economic reason, unemployment, and poverty, extreme poverty. So, and particularly after this takeover of Taliban in August 2021. So the hopes of the young generation is really, washed up, and they are now more sort of interested to live, inside Afghanistan for various reasons. And one reason is unemployment. Other reason is restrictive policies of the current regime. And like, for example, no access for women to education, to work, so now what they are trying, sort of to leave Afghanistan and, go to either Iran, Turkey, Europe, and other countries. So this is, I think, the one of the main reason is poverty and unemployment and economic situation. And definitely, as I said, I think there is a lot of more reasons, which I wanted to say about a little bit about this, which is a little bit relevant to this Ukraine thing, is that these days this whole focus of the entire West is on Ukraine, and they are forgetting something very, very important, in that region, particularly in Afghanistan, and that is, strengthening of the international terrorist groups, because I'm closely observing this. The EITM, for example, the IMU, the Al Qaeda, the ISKP. So Afghanistan is like a sort of turning into a hub and a big safe haven, to the international terrorist groups. And then this the drug trafficking issue, which is also, I think, maybe in short, midterm or long term, it's going to be a huge headache, for tomorrow, for the Europeans and for the rest of the world globe, And then if the international community really don't bring Afghanistan high in the agenda, I think this issue of international terrorism or international terrorist organizations, which is strengthening day by day in Afghanistan, I think it will definitely underline, the regional security, and not only the regional security, but it is going to pose a sort of huge threat, to the national security of Europe and the US.
So, but if you can explain a little bit also, Sadullah, about like the immigration policy of Norway, just to understand the difference between, like, for example, the Scandinavian countries and the rest of European Union, like in like what type of immigrants they can bring to the state, what is the treatment, what they have to do, or whatever. If there is like some specific ethnical group or specific behavior, like studies or type of employment, just
Yeah.
to understand.
Yeah, I mean, like, I haven't gone through, to be honest, like, I haven't gone through this immigration policy of Norway. But what I'm observing here in Norway, that the government is treating all refugees, regardless of ethnic group, geography, and everything, very properly. And I think they are assessing all the cases in a very professional manner. But one thing is that what I see, I think, as far as there is a threat or persecution, and and from any country, according to the Norwegian refugee policy, they are welcome, and they will be given a sort of asylum, protection. Recently, when the Taliban took over, a big number of Afghans, like, I think I don't know the exact figures, but it was around 15 or 17,000 Afghan refugees. They give protection to those who have been working as advisors, interpreters, and supported, or the civil society people, actor, the journalists, media people, and most importantly, the CRU, the Crisis Response Unit, which was a special forces, Afghan special forces, uh, trained by the Norwegian special forces. I think there were around, I don't know, 500 or 1,000, but they were also given protection, in Norway. Just to sum up, I mean, the Norwegian refugee policy is so balanced. I think, as far as I see, in terms of treatment, in terms of providing facilities, and everything. So far, it's what I have observed in Norway.
Okay, last thing that I want to ask to you, and then I will return to Cheng about China and war in Ukraine. Whenever you have to go, just go because I know that you had like to go at two. So thank you a lot for your participation. If you can stay, but if you can go, if you have to go, just go. For anybody
Okay, thanks
that
everyone. It was pleasure participating, and see you next time. Thanks
for
everyone.
anybody that not yet subscribed to his channel, like on the description there is all the links to Cheng Weilai, Asadullah Farenzai Twitter and War in Ukraine channel. So subscribe to them because it's very interesting all. So about just what I was saying, and Asadullah, I wanted to say to you before, to ask another thing about Afghanistan, and then we move to China and Taiwan. About the population, what I wanted to say, in 1960, let's say that Soviet Union was 280 million, and United States was 179. So it was about 20 million people more. The final number was that in 1990, Soviet Union was 285 million, and United States was 250, 248. So it was still 40 millions more. Now Russia it's 140 million, something like this. United States, the official number census of 2020 is 331 million. So we see that like in the demographic analysis, Russia now it's less than half of what is United States now. Maybe because it's like US, it's a huge immigration magnet, or there is like a big economy. So that's it. Asadullah, what I wanted to say to us, to you, last thing, if you have, because there is no news, nothing about Afghanistan. I think last month, zero news in the Western coverage. If you have like any news of what is happening, government, except we had also some news about the skirmish between Taliban's and Iranian guards on the border, but nothing else. So if you can say something about it, if you have some news.
I think it's many things are happening in Afghanistan, but as I said, the scary trend is this re-emerging of the international terrorist groups, which I don't think the Taliban have the capacity to fully dismantle them, particularly the ISKP. I mean, they will control them, but they cannot dismantle them. And the ISKP is causing a sort of, damage to the Taliban, I think.
Sadullah,
When
sorry, what is the name of the group that you said?
The Islamic State of Khorasan,
ah,
ISKP. Yeah, Islamic
ISKP.
State of Khorasan.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we have this Islamic State, and then it's KP, Khorasan province, which
Okay,
covers.
okay. So it's like ISIL, but of
Yeah,
Afghanistan. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So there is like many groups, international terrorist groups. Like it's IMU, the International Uzbek Movement, EITM. This Uyghurs, and then many others. TTP, Tahrik Taliban Pakistan, and all those groups. But generally, like just to give you a sort of snapshot, in terms of security situation, I think the current regime is doing good. The people are enjoying security across the country. In terms of justice, people have access to justice. I think at least the courts are functioning, and all that. And then I think the corruption level, we cannot say that it's completely eliminated, but if we compare it with the former previous republic, I think it has decreased dramatically, the corruption, in Afghanistan. And humanitarian access or humanitarian situation, it's unfortunately, the crisis is unfolding across the country, and there is no development aid, just only humanitarian. The poverty is so high, the level of poverty and unemployment. That's why, as I said, due to these reasons, people are actually leaving Afghanistan, and it's this poverty and sort of unemployment is really encouraging migration from Afghanistan. And then if you see the women rights, human rights, I think there is a big miss in Afghanistan. This current regime is really not respecting the international human rights standards. Like I think Afghanistan is the only country, across the globe, where the girls are banned from education, the women are banned from education, from work. And we have many number of Islamic countries across the world, in even in the region, so there are they have given like legitimate rights, to women. All their human rights have been given to women. But this is something that the international community is going to engage. They are trying to engage and trying to sort of convince the Taliban. There is work going on about how to convince the current de facto regime, on allowing women or respecting the women rights. The freedom of press, freedom of media is not there. Unfortunately, it's completely censored. These are the sort of like negative, and then the scary part is, again, as I'm telling you, which is going to be a big threat for tomorrow, is the re-emerging and reorganizing of the international terrorist groups in Afghanistan. And I think for the time being, as far as I see, I think yes, the regional countries such as China, like Iran, India, for instance, and Central Asian states, they are highly concerned about re-emerging of these international terrorist groups, because it is really definitely undermining the security, regional security. And during most of the formats, particularly the Moscow format, which is going to happen again, and they always, emphasize on this drug trafficking, narcotics, and regional insecurity, or this emerging of international terrorist groups in Afghanistan. But they don't focus, or they don't, sort of, say anything about the women rights, about the education. And then, in the contrary, the West is very much pushing on this women rights agenda, including girls' education. So there is no sort of lack of unified voice, or unified position regarding Afghanistan among the between the region and the rest of or the West, or the rest of international community. So these are the problems, and there are some achievements. I think the Taliban, they also have started some infrastructure across the country. I think they are highly dependent and expecting China, to sort of do an investment, in mines and coal, and what China is for the time being reluctant, but they are exploring possibilities and see how they will. But they have a potential interest, the China, in terms of they have two interests actually. One is the security, the Uyghurs, to control them by the Taliban, because Uyghurs, they are sort of posing a threat to the Chinese. And the second is, their investment in Afghanistan, particularly like Afghanistan is one of the countries which has a huge reserves, lithium, for example, which is worth of around 3 trillion. So we have a lot of gas reserves, and many precious stones. So China seems to be so, like interested to invest. And I think if Chinese invest, that is good for us, because it will generate jobs. Not only Chinese. I mean, if any country, I think any country is welcome. If it is West, or if it is China, or if it is Iran, because we know that investment in mining, investment in infrastructure will definitely generate jobs. And when we have jobs, people, the youth, they will not leave the country. They will not join the ISKP or other international terrorist groups for many, because many of them, they have joined the international trade groups, for money reasons, for economic reasons. It's not only ideology. So that's how it is for the time being, Stefano. But fingers crossed, and let's see.
Let's see. Chang, I wanted to, when I will return back about Afghanistan, because it's interesting and we have like, except me, all Asian panel now. So, China, it's interesting because there was like the publication of the data about GDP expectation and GDP growth of China. It was much less than was expected. We were talking about it, if you remember, Chang, also last week. And today all the Western market, let's say at the opening, that was bad, because yesterday like the Asian market were bad, like following the wave from the China publication about the GDP. The provocation that I want to say to you, and then we can talk about it, there is an official statement of yesterday, let's say, about the New York Times, but CBS, also others main publication in USA, where what is saying that
what's I'm sorry, but the okay.
Now, I wanted to say and give it to you that officially now the first trading partner for United States is not China anymore, but is Mexico. So it's interesting that something is moving, and also what is happening is in Asia. It's like, let's say, probably the next globalization state that could be the new China for US. It's Mexico. And it's next to, it's not far away, maybe there is less problem. And what do you think about it?
Currently the China has published their GDP expectation. The expectation is that it's up to 5% this year. The GDP growth, the expectation is up to 5% this year. And recently, there's a news that China has published ratio. The rate is that the unemployment rate in the young people is to 20.81%. There are 21%. According to the China government, there are really 21% of the new young Chinese people can't find any job. But the problem is that although the 21% of unemployment rate is high, but actually this is the it is already a made up data. The here's the definition of the unemployment rate. The unemployment definition is if you work 0 hours per week, that is that's called unemployment. But if you have a job, work only 1 hour per week, then you have a job. You are not calculated in the unemployment rate. And comparing to United States says the unemployment population is work less than 20 hours, and France is less than 15 hours. So you can clearly see that there's one common sense. There's one common sense in the China, in the China and Taiwan. That is the Chinese government's data are all made up. They are highly there is a high estimation of the real situation. Like Taiwanese, if we want to understand about the China economy, we don't see the Chinese government's data. We see what in Taiwan we have a strong economic connection to China because China is our neighbor. So we have many companies do the business with China. And currently, and how can we know the economy of China, we see those companies. If those companies has good profit and the stock market is going up, we say, oh, the China's economy is good. But if those companies, the stock market is go down and they have little money, little profit, and we know, oh, the China's the China's economy back up. So we actually use the stock market index in Taiwan to estimate about the China economy. And currently, those Taiwanese companies who work in China, most of them have cut down about 20%. It means that they have a 20% cut comparing to the former years. So we estimate the actually GDP growth in China, it's actually it's actually smaller than zero. It is maybe -1% or -2% this year. So after 5 years is China government has many ways to create a big data. They have many ways to modify data.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just to understand. So your let's say thought about the analysis of the official data of China, it's like to analyze the stock exchange market in China and say the economy it's -1%.
Yes, yes in Taiwanese we think that maybe -1%. Now we don't think that China has growth on its GDP. Yeah.
Okay, so like you said, like with let's say Chinese government have the tools to manage like a fake increase of the GDP for the public, but the real economy that is connected to the stock exchange, in reality, it's going down 1%.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes. So this is the way. And about another way is about the renminbi. Renminbi is the China's policy currency. The renminbi, the actual exchange rate of the renminbi is also not the Chinese government's data. The actual exchange rate of the renminbi, you need to take a look at the Hong Kong market. In Hong Kong, there's a one big exchange for the renminbi to the USD. And if you see the exchange rate in Hong Kong, that is the real exchange rate. Exchange rate of the renminbi. And right now the renminbi is really I think $1 is equal to 7 renminbi in the Chinese government estimation. But I remember that in Hong Kong market there is 1 to 10 or 1 to 8. Yes. Actually that if you there's one thing, if you could hope like about all the economic data of the China, if you divide through, like if let's say they are expected to have 5% of growth and cut hope to 2.5%, and about the negative data like unemployment, you times through. Like if you have the China said the unemployment rate is 20.81, and you times through like 41.6%, and that is the practical that is possible the real data of the Chinese economy. That is the some people's experience in China. So we actually have many ways to guess or to clarify what is the real situation inside China. But none of the way is to look the Chinese government's data, because we know it is fake. Yeah, so this is something interesting in the China and Taiwan and this other who really understand China. But the other thing is that there's one thing. I recently I have seen one Chinese internet celebrity. That Chinese internet celebrity is migrated to Canada. So why migrating to Canada is because that if he become the citizen of Canada or U.S. citizen, then he won't be straight. He won't be threatened by the Chinese government that he can speak a truth or speak something unfavorable to the Chinese government. And he has made a comment. I want to share you all. He made a comment. The biggest problem of the Chinese economy is that the Chinese government is unwilling to admit that has a problem and unwilling to clarify how big is the problem. So this is the real problem of the Chinese economy.
It's you open me like a planet, and I was checking all the stock exchange quotation, but in 5 years. So last 5 years, it's interesting because, as you said, like to have the real quality of the stock exchange, you have to see to the Hang Seng, to Hong Kong, not to the Chinese market. And the Hang Seng in the last 5 years lost minus 32%, 32% in the last 5 years. At the same time, the Taiwan Stock Exchange, it was like in plus 16. Standard and Poor's 500, the USA was plus 61. And for example, a small stock exchange that is the Italian was plus 31. So in the analyzing of the state of the economy, this is like the finance analysis. So it's not like the real GDP that is communicated by the state, but the actual Hang Seng data, it's not good in the last 5 years, because if I invested money in the Chinese economy, I'm not having a return back. And I can say you technically, by my point of view, because I started an investment in the beginning of 2022, and the only fund that it's not growing, it's this Carmignac product that I have, that was with a lot of investment in the Chinese market, and it's still in minus. So all the others went up except this one. So it's interesting that like in finance, it's difficult in long term to cheat, because the data will go out. So but tell me, like, if you have any updates about let's say Taiwan, the specific that we talked last week about, let's say, I don't know if there is any that is connected to the military escalade, any news, or it's still the same, nothing changed, still like in standby.
About the Taiwanese situation, recently the U.S. has bought the Eagle missile. That is the anti air defense system, old air defense system. U.S. has purchased our retired Eagle missile and send them to Ukraine. This is probably the one big news in Taiwan and between the Ukraine. But I have saw that the comment.
So sorry, Cheng. If it can confirm my theory, let's say, so actually the US bring to you a new air defense system, bring the old one that was in Taiwan to bring it to Ukraine, right? So it's like no.
The US buy the both, like buy our old one to Ukraine, but they won't send the new one here. Currently, that the US military sale or our military deal has been postponed without limit. Yeah, unlimited postponed, because that the Ukraine has occupied nearly all of the US capacity of exporting the weapons. So our deal and our order is postponed, and we don't know when to the end. And currently, we are emphasizing how to make self-made our weapon and try to import the weapon from Czech Republic. Yeah, we have a deal with the Czech Republic, and we buy some weapon from there. Yeah.
So from other countries could be like Korea or whatever.
Oh no! Korea don't sell us weapon. Korea is very pro China and pro Russia. The Korea pro China.
No, not North Korea, South Korea.
Yeah, South Korea. South Korea is very pro China and pro Russia. Yeah, indeed.
South
That's
Korea.
one thing. Yeah, South Korea. I share one story to you because I'm the one major analyst, Ukraine analyst in Taiwan, and I have done many about some activity we do through a collaboration to help Ukraine, and my collaboration with Japan is very successful. But one thing I say, hey, there are three democratic countries in the East Asia: Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. And how can I do collaborate with South Korea? Because I haven't heard many news about the Korea's aiding to Ukrainian. Unless last week maybe their president get an interview with go to visit Ukraine, but that is the last week news. But last year when I have a chance to have a contact with a Korean friend, and then I said, oh, is there have any collaboration chance for me to collaboration with you to connect the pro-Ukrainian community in Korean and do something help to Ukraine? And the Korean friend is pro-Ukraine and said, yes, let me ask. But after 1 week, he said, oh no, we can't do the pro-Ukraine activity very explicitly. We need to do underground, because if you openly say, oh, you want to help Ukraine, and the South Korean government will do something, try to make you try to give you some trouble, and because they don't want to piss off Russia. They're saying in Korean saying the South Korean government has a big contract, big gasoline and the natural gas contract with Russia, and they are afraid of that Russia may ask South Korea to ask North Korea to do something against South Korea, because if Russia has sent some messages to North Korea, and North Korea may have declared some nuclear threat, may have to held the missile drill in the Korean Sea. Yeah, this is possible. So that is why the Korean government doesn't like the domestic population to be pro-Ukrainian too much. But if you ask one Korean, that if you support Russia or Ukraine, the Korean citizen will say, I support Ukraine. But they just can't to have a very apparent activity to help Ukraine.
So it's let's say it's common sense to support Ukraine, but there is not. But I think from the last week also, like the government had like made a statement. I think why. Because US push South Korea because it's the biggest producer of 155 millimeter artillery bullets.
Yes.
I think that it's not about any specific, let's say, weapons, high tech or whatever, but it's about artillery. And the only, let's say, not NATO, but let's say G7 country or plus allied that have a capacity of production of artillery bullet 155 NATO. It's South Korea. So probably, I mean, US had still like a big influence of South Korea and a lot of bases. It's like, for you to make an example, and when we have some question from the public, Italy and Germany, let's say, we are like free countries, but we lost the Second World War. So only to make a news for the public. Not bases, but installation. In Italy, we have at least over 120 US installations. So it's not 2, 3, it's over 120. We have still like one big US base that is like in Vicenza, with over 10,000 military people and personnel from US permanent. We have plenty of NATO bases in Naples, in Aviano. In my province, there is a big base. I will send to you. It's called Gedi. And Italy and Germany, plus other 3 countries in Europe, have like this system that it's like share nuclear capacity. Like we are not nuclear powers, but we have nuclear bombs. So,
yeah.
only it's the same for Turkey. Turkey is not a nuclear power, but have nuclear bombs. It's nuclear deterrent, but it's called like shared nuclear capacity. Like the bottom, it's in the US technically, but the bombs are hosted in these countries. The bombs, I can say to you which one is. I can tell you, it's like it's called B6112, the type of bomb. If you are curious, also for the people, we can check it later. It's like only air to ground. It's not a ballistic missile. So it's bombs that you can put on F-16, on F-22, on Tornado. Not on Eurofighter, you cannot bring it, but it's only in bombers, and it's a bomb for a preemptive attack. It's not for response. So it was made only for deterrent, not to be used for a response. It's like for first attack. And returning back to the questions, let's see. Okay, how different is life in Taiwan compared to mainland China? Could peaceful reintegration, if it ever happens, influence mainland Chinese politics in a way that may challenge the CCP?
Oh, okay. Let me ask this problem. The difference between the China and Taiwan, one of the biggest, because I go to Xiamen this airport, so I just go to China's three months ago. So
Cheng,
I know,
sorry, only to put in the same question, but the language, like the Chinese that you are speaking in the Taiwanese, it's so different with Mandarin Chinese, or it's similar?
The accent is different. We have a standard Taiwanese accent, then the standard Chinese accent is a little bit different. Let me show you. If I say 我今天很喜欢吃东西，然后我很想吃饭啊，我就这样写。我今天很喜欢吃东西，我很想吃饭什么之类的。But in China, there was a standard Beijing accent is that 我这里肚子饿了。我想吃点饭儿，去弄点什么东西。So basically there are some slightly difference between the accent between the Taiwan and China, and this is very important because in Hong Kong, if you go to in Hong Kong, and if you say Chinese, if you speak Chinese, not Cantonese, the Hong Kong people will be very unfriendly to you because they don't like China. But if you speak the standard Taiwanese accent, they like you very much because they know, you are from Taiwan. So
okay, but grammarly the language is the same. So the difference is the accent.
The difference is there are some
words.
Professional nouns, just like US and UK. US and UK had different vocabulary. We also have different vocabulary because for me, if we say something is fucking good, we say 这很屌. But in China, they say 这很牛逼. So 屌和牛逼 also means fucking group, but it is in different press area. There are many kind of this phrase. And in Taiwan, we have a protection noun called 治愈警察. 治愈警察 what it means? The police to investigate the Chinese noun, because in China they have some special noun like video. We say in Taiwan we say 影片, like in China we say 视频. But some Taiwanese will say 视频. Then the 治愈警察, the police, the Chinese they language, but oh, you are Taiwanese, you can't say 视频, say 影片 please. Yeah, there's something like it. And
so returning back to the question, do you think that there is a chance to make like this like one China or a reunification, if could be possible this thing or not, and like if Taiwan can influence in a better way about People Republic of China actual government?
Okay, there's two part in that question. The first question is the lifestyle in the China and Taiwan.
Yes.
The second, but I think I can answer the second question first because that's faster. The second question is the Taiwan peaceful reintegration infused mainland Chinese party in a way that match Chinese PCP? Unfortunately, no. Because the problem is that in China there has some speech control. You can say something unfavorable to the President Xi Jinping or the CCP government. So if you want to say something that doesn't fit the appetite of the CCP government, the voice will be eliminated, so the CCP government can't hear it. And
so in Taiwan, a thing that I don't know, is it possible to have like satirical, let's say, programs, or I don't know, talk funny about the government, or no?
We have a communication route between the China government and Taiwan. We have
no. I'm talking like, do you have like some newspaper or some TV program that makes satirical let's say things about your government? If I'm Taiwanese, I can say like, let's say, bad things about my government because I don't like it, or no?
We can slam our government. 比如说，我可以每天说那个蔡英文政府今天就是but I can say any kind of a negative government to the President Tsai Ing-wen. And in Taiwan, it is because we have we have autocracy government in the 1960s, before 1960s. So we are. It is our obligation in the new generation. It is our obligation to say something bad to our government, because we also said we are afraid that if we say something good to our government, then we will come back to the autocracy period. So we tend to say something bad to the government. Yeah, but in China that is completely upside. Okay, if you say something bad, maybe you can't see the sun tomorrow. Okay, 你看不到明天的太阳。
So let's say the people is afraid like to say something because there is a lot of control.
The problem is more the actual situation in China is more than your imagination. In the normal Chinese people, because I have met and talk with several Chinese elite and the normal people, they don't have politics in their mind. They don't have politics. They just don't have politics in their life. So if you can talk with them for more than 1 week, 2 weeks, and more than a month, they won't mention any word about politics.
It's interesting for me because I went in China like 4 times. I went only in Qingdao and in Beijing, and for conferences. So let's say that we were a little bit in a bubble for foreigners. So but I went like also to see outside the city, whatever. And it was interesting for me because I went for 4 years in this type of conference. Very interesting. Before COVID, there was a huge market for selling conference places in China. You go in a 5-star luxury hotel without nothing all around, but inside it's perfect. And with a lot of people from all over the world presenting their papers. It was interesting for me because like these papers technically were used like to not to copy but to listen the new things from abroad, like for the internal market. But I tried for 4 years to enter in contact with local government, city, let's say municipal board. Nothing. It was impossible because nobody is answering to you. There is no email on website, no form, zero. So it was very difficult, and it seems to me that, let's say, the political control was very closed in itself. And the only way that I was trying to enter in contact was through Brazil, because I had a friend that was like in the Brazilian social party, and they are interconnected through these like communist socialist parties, not between like normal relationship. Like you cannot find, I don't know, I cannot contact you like in Twitter. There is not. So maybe there is Twitter account, but without the mail message.
Yeah.
So let me and the other question, it was about the lifestyle, if it's different like in Taiwan or in China.
Okay, the biggest difference between Taiwan and China is that Taiwanese people trust another Taiwanese people. We trust each other. But if you say to Chinese people and you have to get familiar to them, they will say, "Oh, okay, don't believe Chinese people, because the Chinese people will scam each other." But this is the big difference between the China and the Taiwan. It's about social security. Social security. I don't mean the social credit score. It is social security. The criminal rate in Taiwan is lowest in the world. We are safely declared in the world, but in China, the social security is deteriorating because the economy is not good and the criminal rate is going up and up. My Chinese friend had accompanied me that it's in the back to the 1980s period. The 1980s period in China is the worst. It's the time that the social security was the worst in the history, and then they are complaining that now the situation inside China is more and more close to the 1980s period. So basically, like if you live in Taiwan, you won't feel fear in our society, unless you watch the news. The news will say, "Oh, the China will have sent some aircraft to circle around the Taiwanese island." Okay, this is the only time you may have fear, but for other time, this is pretty safe. It is pretty safe. And when I say my girlfriend is a French, and recently she just got back to French, and I remember that when she get into the Paris station, and she told me that, "Oh, I have seen one bad guy here. Oh, that guy is going to it's going to steal someone's money or maybe to scam others." But it's okay in Taiwan, because she lives in Taiwan for more than 1 year, and said, but in Taiwan you can't see any apparent bad people. Yeah, so this is very different between the Taiwan and China.
Let me give you the connected to this one. Like, how much is like average salary? But you are in Taipei or another city? You live in Taipei?
I live in Hsinchu. I'm not living in Taipei. I live in countryside. I'm not living in city. Yeah.
Okay, let's say in your city, how much is like for, as you know, like the average salary, and how much money do you need to live?
It depends on the north part of Taiwan and south part of Taiwan. Just like Italy, the north part of the Taiwan is highly developed, and south part is relatively not developed. The Taiwan is if you live in Taipei City, basically if you can't earn more than $40,000, you are extremely poor in Taipei City. But in the Taipei City, our capital, but outside the capital, in Xinbei City, it may be 35,000, you are being poor. But in like my country, in my home, like
$35,000, you are talking about.
Sorry, the $40,000 is in Taiwanese dollar, and $14,000 Taiwanese dollar is equal to 1,300 USD. 1,300 USD.
Okay,
this is the
1,300 per month. Okay, perfect.
This is the poverty line in our heart, in our capital. But outside the capital, outside the Taipei, there is the Xinbei City. There is the suburb. The suburb is the 35,000 Taiwanese dollar. This is equal to 1,150 USD.
So 300 difference. Okay, perfect.
Okay, but from outside, like by countryside in Taiwan, in Hukou, it is in Hsinchu, in countryside. 20,000 Taiwanese dollar. 20,000 is equal to really 700 USD. Then
okay. Let's say if you have one of the last geopolitical question, but let's say that you have to make your monthly balance. You have monthly expenditure. What is like in your money? What you spend more? House, buying foods, insurance. I don't know. Car, benzene. What is the biggest expenses?
The biggest.
I'm asking to you, Cheng, because when I was last year in October in Japan, I was shocked because for Italians, let's say Japan, it's in our imagination very expensive countries, but in the last 2 years we have a huge deflection, and the yen was going down 40%. So for me, was everything extremely cheap. So it was like shocking for me. But they said to me that normally, like food or whatever, it's not so expensive in Japan. In Japan, everything that is expensive is connected to the house. So cost of the house, insurance of the house, maintenance of the house in Japan is huge, and the houses are very small. So in Taiwan, what is like the difference? What is like the main expenditure?
The main expense in Taiwan is also the house mortgage. The house mortgage also is the main consumer in Taiwan. It may be cost about 60% to 70% of your income.
But so you are talking also about renting, or only if you buy the house?
Buying a house and renting a house is comparing to the house situation. But no matter you are buying a house or renting a house, unless you are inheriting a house, then you don't need to buy it. You still need to pay the really half of your salary. For normal Taiwanese people, half of your salary will be sent to the mortgage. Yes.
To what? To the mortgage of a house? Perfect.
Yes, if you have family, yeah. But if you are single, then the mortgage is really about I think in Taoyuan but not hard area in Taiwan. But in Taoyuan is really about 17,000 US Taiwanese dollar. It's really about 220 USD. And that is the mortgage. So if you are single, the mortgage is very cheap. But if you have family, the mortgage may be more than 700 USD. So you need to earn a lot. So that's why the Taiwanese people tend to not to get married and tend not to bearing children. This is because of the mortgage. One point is because of the mortgage. And I want to provide you some data. We have our land is 36,000 kilometers square, but we have 24 million population. Our population is really hope 50% to the France, but our land is really only 5% of the France territory. So we have extremely large population. That's why our mortgage is very high. But outside
you have let's say few land and a lot of people. So the cost of houses, it's connected about the let's say inflation of the houses because you have less offer than the demand because there is no land.
In Taiwan, the inflation is not very explicit. It's not very explicit. You can feel the inflation, maybe 1 or 2%, but the inflation cannot affect you. The Russian-Ukrainian war doesn't impact the Taiwanese economy, so we don't have any inflation. Actually, we still import maybe 2 or 3% of the Russian oil. We don't completely ban it because the trade amount is very little. Yes, but anyway, this war won't affect our economy, so you can't see any kind of inflation here. Yeah.
Let me put like Cheng the last question just to stay because we are already over 1 hour and a half. So if some magic austerity ceases tomorrow and energy trade goes back to before the war, without the Nord Stream pipeline, is there even enough capacity to restore the gas oil export to the same level? This is the question from Islam. And I have a last one. That one I will answer, but also with Cheng. I often hear that both China and Taiwan want to be like Singapore. Why is that? What's the special about Singapore comparison to Taiwan and China? So this is for you, Cheng. And about the other question, we return back to this one and then we closed. Returning back to this one, let me retake the presentation only like to take. Okay. This is like the pipeline things. This pipeline, it's the actual, let's say, image that you can, what we can analyze. And let's say that Nord Stream 2, it's not working and it's actually interrupted. I don't care about who bombed, don't bombed. Let's say that we don't talk about it. Actually, the actual capacity of importing oil and gas of Europe, it's, let's say from Italy, actually from Italy, it's biggest than before. Because now we have 7 operative LNG ports, also Germany now in the North Sea have it. We are increasing the cooperation with Cyprus and with Egypt, with Israel, whatever. The main thing, I think that the main problem is like for the market that were transferring the Russian oil and gas. Let's say Ukraine, because they get a lot of money from the transfer. We can check also Belarus with Yamal and the other market that is the Turk Stream that actually it's not working because there is no pipeline inside the Black Sea. There is only the blue streams, but the biggest corridor that will be in the future, it's like the TAP that is going from Baku. I will be in Azerbaijan in less than, I think, in 3 weeks. So I will check on site, but I'm only kidding. The main thing is that if we check to this map, the big interesting thing about this map, it's like the Caspian Sea. Why? Because let's return back to this chart. This is about China. We saw it before. If we return back to, let's say, this one, we can see about, let's look to Italy, but it's like the orange line. We can see that it went to the lowest level in September 2020. Now we can say that the actual import of Russia from Italy, it's technically zero. We are not importing any more gas, 0%. And for us, it was disaster at the beginning. Why? Because Italy was one of the first friends country of Russia. If you can check historically, I was studying in GIMO in 2016 in Moscow, course about Russian foreign policy, and it was interesting for me that one of the first country that started trading relationship with Russian Federation after the collapse of the Soviet Union was Italy. Why? Because historically there was a big connection between Italy and Russia. Why? I can explain to the people that don't know about it. Because Italy was hosting the biggest communist party in the West outside Soviet Union. So it was a very complicated relationship between Russia and Italy, especially after the Second World War. And it's not a case that one of the biggest automotive factory in Russia, that is Lada, it's in a city that is called Togliatti, that is the name of one former secretary of Italian Communist Party. Togliatti was giving the name of the city, the Communist Party of Russia giving the name of the city, and the factory was using Italian technology of Fiat to create cars and trucks for the Russian market. So there was a lot of interconnection between the two countries, and also between Rosneft and Gazprom and the Italian Eni, that is the equivalent of Rosneft and Gazprom, and the prices of the gas imported to Italy from Russia was not regulated by the market. It's interesting this case. Like the selling was in the market price, but the imported price was a secret agreement between Italian government and Russian government. It was long time ago. So there was a huge profit from the Italian, let's say, oil company and gas company, because it was able to import in a very low price and export to a bigger price. Now it's like closed. Like from Tarvisio, from Austria, we're not importing anymore, and I think that the country that it's let's say having a more hurting from this, it's Germany, because it's not interconnected to the southern market and to the eastern market, because it's in the north. You have to pass from the Eastern Europe, and actually Eastern Europe, it's a little bit complicated. So my opinion is, when this thing will end, I hope soon, but I don't see the end of the tunnel at the moment. I think that there will be a restoration of the import from Russian Federation, but for sure not at the level that was before. Why? Because at the moment the Russian government it's considered not, let's say, not trustable from the Western government, also in trades. So this is the big problem. If the government don't trust you, how can we make a deal in a commercial thing about billions of euro? And we are choosing between the less bad, not the better, because
not Hungary.
Let's say let's say if we have to import from Bahrain, okay, also Bahrain, it's not like the best exporter, let's say democratic country in the world, or either Egypt or whatever. It's a military control country, so it's complicated. Question for you, this one that we said before. I often hear that both China and Taiwan want to be like Singapore. If you have like this thing, what do you think about Singapore? I was there, so
personally, I hate Singapore, because Singapore is actually a dictatorship country. Don't say, but many people say that Singapore is just like a democratic country, but no. Actually, it is a dictatorship country. If you see the past 40 years since 1960, the Singapore's government is also controlled by Lee family. It's called the first is Lee Kuan Yew, the second is Lee Hsien Loong. both of them are dictators, but they are just not very explicitly. And while Singapore is rich, Singapore has more than 60,000 USD dollars. Why they are rich? Because of their location. They are just like Hong Kong, but their location is better than Hong Kong. The location of Singapore, if you turn on the world map, the Singapore is on the throat of the Malaysia and Indonesia. They have a Malaysia canal, and Singapore is on there. So the Singaporean can ask the passing fee between the both. So that which make them extremely rich. And also the Singapore is the biggest country which do the oil factory. They can transform the oil, raw oil into some like the gasoline, like the plastic material that this is one of the big fossil fuel industry country in Singapore. So that's why they are rich. But the problem is that Singapore, although Singapore is rich, but their commodity price is also high. The commodity price is really about 10 times to Taiwan. In Taiwan, if you want to eat a good lunch, in the southern part of Taiwan, you need $2. In the northern part of Taiwan, you need $3. And this is one meal. So if you want to survive for 1 month, if you can cook in your home, $300 is enough for you to survive in Taiwan, very comfortable. If you don't calculate mortgage, and if you want to be more luxury, maybe $400 to $500, and that's all. But in Singapore, if you want to survive for 1 month, you may need $1,000 or $2,000.
No, I agree with you because I was there 3 times, and it's interesting because let's say it's called law enforcement state, as you said, it because there is a lot of rules. Like I don't know, for the people who, like Isla, you never been there because they made the question. But let's say it's one of the only, I think, the only country in the world where it's forbidden to use chewing gum. You cannot chew because why? Because you can spit the chewing gum on the floor. So it's forbidden to chew. The first time that I arrived, I was in the plane and I was chewing, and my friends was picking me up to the train station and said, "Don't chew because you will be fined." And I was, what is it? So it was interesting for me what my friend said to me, because it's very easy, for example, to put something in what you said, like the market, the labor market. It's very interesting in Singapore because it's very easy to find a work if you are qualified. Like labor market, I think it's dominated by Indian, Indonesian, Malaysian people. Low market. There is a lot of Chinese. In Singapore, and this Chinese normally it's like entrepreneurs, blah blah blah. A lot of foreigners from any countries in the world, because the salaries for let's say very specific professions are very high. So as you said, like the costs are very high, but the taxes are very low. I think it's less than 15%. In Italy, it's the real taxation. It's over 40, 45, 50%. If you calculate also like your pension funds and whatever, in Singapore, it's very low. And I think that the good thing in Singapore, it's in every time in the top 3 chart in doing business, like it's very easy to make a business, but for sure it's expensive because it's there is a lot of money all around. There is a lot of Chinese money in Singapore. It's like Hong Kong. It's like the second Hong Kong for the Chinese money to go. If it's not Hong Kong, it's Singapore. And it was interesting for me. It's very small. If anybody will go there, I don't know, Cheng, if you ever been, but Singapore, in one day, you see the city. It's not there is nothing. It's not so big. It's very concentrated. I think that the density is bigger than Taiwan because it's like an island city, and and another thing that it's important for Singapore, it's also the traffic of the airport. It's one of the biggest airport in Asia. So not only for Singapore Airlines, but they have a lot of, let's say, transfers. So they earn a lot of money because if you want to go in Asia, you can pass through Bangkok or Singapore, but it's maybe more Singapore. And it's interesting. Last thing about it, what could be like your forecast about what is happening now in Ukraine? Because in Europe, I think that what will happen soon, we are ending in a phase that will be interesting because there will be American election next year. So I don't know what will happen, but for sure, I think that the US intervention will not cease for any candidate that will win in the US election. It will be Trump, a Republican, Biden, another one. I think few things will change. But from your point of view, what could be changed on this scenario if at now, like in Battlefield, everything is a little bit in stalemate? What could be a way to make the negotiation? Because I'm sure that underground, for sure, it's not a war that at the moment is giving a lot of pleasure to the governments because it's too long for everybody. What do you think? Except for the weapons sector, okay. For the others,
Okay. Personally, my point of view is that the last year everyone overestimated Russian too much. This year everyone underestimated Russian too much. There's two kind of things that underestimate Russian too much. The first thing is underestimate the about the Russian politics endurance to the war. Everyone said, oh, the president had launched the counter attack. So I bet the Putin may not be survived for more than 2 years or something like that. Well, I partially agree that Putin's regime is going to collapse, but the time it will going to collapse is extremely long. Because that the collapse of the Putin regime started at the COVID outbreak in 2020. Until now is 2023. So yes, the Putin regime will going to collapse in the future, but maybe 2026, 2027, or 2028. It will be a long time. That problem is that the successor, the next president of the Russia, will keep supporting the war because in the Russian history, what you can back up the Russian domestic economy situation in Russia, but you must win the war. If you can't win the war, you will fuck up. For example, like the Alexander II. Alexander II in the Russia is a Russian emperor from the 1854 to 1881. And in 1853, there's the Crimean War, and Russia lost the battle. So his father died, and then he became the emperor. He became a Tsar, and then he did a lot of the domestic reform of the economic reform. He made the domestic economic situation really great. But unfortunately, there in 1880s there's a war between Russia and Turkey. But Russia lost the war. So people are angry and assassinated him. So this can show that in the Russian person they have one will. The will is you must win the war. Even you fuck up all the economy inside Russia, doesn't matter. But if you can in war,
yeah, let me put you a provocation and also for the public because I think that we will receive some question after. Especially because our live today it's in a time that is a little bit complicated for all the world, so we will receive comments but later. What could be claimed as a war for the internal Russian market? This is the important thing. Let's say what I wanted to put you as a provocation. Russia, let's say, had a history of wars, a long history of wars, but not every time they won. The biggest problem that they had, let's say in the 80s, was the Afghan war. And the Afghan war there's like the biggest number of losses in history, but it's nothing compared to Ukraine. Now, we will see the numbers at the end, maybe in 10 years, 20 years, but now for sure the numbers are not the true, both sides. But let's make it practical. The main problem that I see is that the Ukrainians are saying we will not negotiate till Putin will be in power. Second, we will negotiate only when Russia is out of the border of 1991. This condition can be easily changed. How? The war could be finished tomorrow if the Western countries will stop the weapon suppliers. So, if we say the war is finished, the war is finished because the Ukrainians cannot do nothing without the Western supplier. The second thing, what could be for the Russian to be claimed as a victory? Because my opinion from the first day of the war was that could be said as a victory, also maintaining in a form Crimea and let's say sort of autonomy of Donbass before the border of February 22nd, blah, blah, blah. And because actually, if we think it in a, let's say, institutional way of speaking, Russia is not having a war in Ukraine. But from their point of view, it's like special military operation. This is special bullshit order. But technically, they are not having a war in Ukraine. So if they can say, we defeated the enemy, we still have the autonomy of the Donbass or blah, 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 and whatever, and still maintain this thing of Crimea, because technically when I was talking with my friends, let's say Ukrainian side, they say, oh, in summer we will arrive in Crimea, no problem. And they said, you are not arrived at the first line of defense. There is 3 lines, and there is like also to arrive in Crimea, it's very complicated, because when you said about the war in the 1880s, that was French, UK, and also Italy was not still a state in that war, but it was like the Piedmont Reign, the northeast, northwest first part of the nation was into that war. The war was not coming from north, but was coming from south. So we can't have to pass like to the northern part because it's a swamp. It's very difficult to pass and very easily to defend from the southern border. So this is my point of view. What is like your point of view of how this thing could end remaining like, let's say, also a soft Cold War or whatever?
Firstly, personally, I totally agree that if West stop aiding to Ukraine, the war will over immediately. Currently, I think it is true because although that Ukrainian want to do some guerrilla tasks and somewhat, but the problem is that currently they don't have the Soviet ammunition factory inside Ukraine. So Ukraine want to do some guerrilla task. They don't have enough ammunition to do that. The problem is, so in current situation, yes, I agree that if the Western stopped all the aid to Ukraine, the war will end now. This is the risk, of course. But there's something that I say the problem is West stop you at supporting Ukraine is a good idea. Because the problem is we all know although personally we all know that Russia won't stop. Today it's Crimea, tomorrow it's Kherson, tomorrow it's maybe the Chernihiv, and then tomorrow it will be Kiev, and next tomorrow will be Poland. Russia, if you don't have the if you don't have the preparation for Russia aggressive again, you say, oh, okay, to make you want to now cut all aid to Ukraine, and now cut all aid to Ukraine and make nuclear negotiation peace. Then do it. But in my opinion, if Russia had acquired any part of additional territory this time, they will do next time, because Russia is still a dictatorship country. They have still tons of the domestic conflict. So if you let their domestic conflict is too big to solve, they invest.
Thanks, sorry. What do you mean about new territory gain? New territory gain after February 22nd or from 1991?
I don't think the history will evolve again. I think that Russia will become a very new kind of country. It is a blend of the Mongol Empire and the Soviet relationship. It will be a new country. It won't embrace community new needs anymore, but it will still invade our country, but to be an empire. Yes. So I think if we war stop now, the war will be held again in 2030. So if we start the war now, that means we just to read for maybe 5 to 6 years, then we will have it again. So indefinitely, I mean literally, you stop this war by cutting all aid to Ukraine. You literally end this war. But for more practically, you stop all aid to Ukraine. You just end this period of the war. The war will be again next period. So this is my point of view about if you cut all aid to Ukraine, the war will still continue.
But I agree with you. But what I was saying, it's like, what could be an exit strategy for Russia? Because okay, I'm let's say that I can understand let's say a little bit of Russian, and but I have also translation, whatever. But if you look to the Russian communication, there is an interesting YouTube channel that it's called Russia Media Monitor. I don't know if you know it, but I will send to you.
I know this.
Okay, perfect. If you check like the communication of the Russian Arte or Solovyev or whatever, changed completely in the last 1 year and a half.
Yes.
Like at the beginning was we will destroy London with one Poseidon missile in 1 second. United Kingdom will not exist anymore. This is like the type of communication that I really don't understand from the Russian side.
Yes.
Second, at the winter, before the winter, it was like communication like that Europe in 2 years will starve and people will start to eat mouses and blah, blah, blah. And closing it, let's say, in my opinion, but also in the Russian, let's say this is okay. This is Isla that is safe from Russia. Like current Russian population, it's not a resilient and these franchises back in the day, so it's a little bit different. I agree with him because the new generation is pissed off about this situation because you can have, I think, the people that it's approving this war, it's like Soviet era people. Let's say over 50. But let's say the people that traveled or the people that have already fled away, because there is a lot of specific profession that were able to work also online. A lot of people is outside. It will be a huge problem for the internal market in the next years because you will not be able to let them return back. So economically, We can talk hours about it, but for me it's a suicide for Russian Federation, because you are creating a state that or will be a vessel of China, but China it's not in a good condition. You said also, Czech.
Yes, yes, yes.
So it's a good condition to make an alliance because it's a similar regime owned by one only guy, Vladimir Vladimirovich Xi. So the
Yeah.
friendship is for the type of government. But if you want to make a growing economy, historically, when like the government it's given only in one guy, if something happening to this guy, or everything, the castle of paper, it's going down. So it also now I think this heritage that we have about Russian economy. It's still, I want to conclude with this phrase, and if you want to say yours, and when we close. For me, it's very sad that a country with low population compared to their let's say dimension of the state. Imagine if we compare Taiwan to Russia. Taiwan it's infinite small. They have 140 million people, that it's less than 3% of the world population, with over 30% of the commodities discovered in the war. Because I think in Russia there is much more than 30% of the commodities. Why the Russian people is not the richest in the world? So this is the thing. If it was like an economy that was well regulated, with a state that was making rules, and the economy that was like market oriented, I think that there is not let's say a question that the people was richer and happier and with a longer life expectancy. The reality in Russia, it's life expectancy of male, it's less than 70 years, and female, it's 75, 80 maximum. In Italy, my two grandparents died 94. So it's a question of how you live, type of food, type of social security. As you said, if I'm afraid every day, I'm in stress, I live bad, whatever. So it could be an interesting chance for the nation to have like better quality of life for the Russians. And also for the Ukrainians, because I think that living in peace and stopping this mess, it could be better for everybody. Plus, with the last thing, and then the last word is yours. We have to remember that this thing, the reconstruction, will have a small cost. At the moment, I think I don't know how many billions we have to spend, and the money for reconstruction it will be all from the West. I don't think that Russia will pay something except the money that it's blocking the banks, but it's only 300 billion. It's not so much.
Yes.
So, what do you think about this? And when we close?
Reason, you mean the you mean the Crimean Bridge? I think the Crimean Bridge has a high strategic value comparing to the war in Ukraine. The YouTuber said I disagree with that. He said this is a political tendency, but I said no. I think no, because there is one thing that people may forget, that the Crimea is lack of water. Crimea needs that bridge for Russia to transport the drinking water to that island, or that island will become a desert, because that the Kherson Kakhovka dam is destroyed. So there's no new water resources to Crimea. So Russia needs to transport by train and by vehicle to transport the drinking water through via Crimea Bridge to Crimea Island. So if Ukraine can successfully destroy the Crimea Bridge after 3 or 5 years, Russia will cannot send the drinking water to Crimea anymore, because the cost will be too high. Then the paramilitary in the Crimea will collapse. So this is a very highly strategic value in Crimea, because Crimea is lack of water. Yes. But the problem is that currently now Crimea Bridge is still can be recovered. there's one step that the Western, that the EU country and Western allies must do is to ban the building material to Russia, because Crimea Bridge is a sea bridge. The sea bridge needs some special material to prevent from the rupture. So, but Russia currently doesn't have these techniques. They need to import those kind of material from EU. So if EU can ban those material to Russia, that can significantly postpone the time for Russia to recover the bridge, and then the war the war situation will be in favor to Ukraine again. Yeah, this is
let me give you the last provocation to close, because Isla said Russia has all the building materials. Yes, but let me give also for Isla one issues. I had some sources internal in Russia, like let's say good level in oil industry, and what these sources said to me, that actually like the market completely changed from Western to Chinese importers, but there is a small problem. The oil perforation was made completely with Western technology, completely. Now this technology is completely replaced, not with Chinese, I thought Chinese, but with Russian parts. So what is happening in the oil perforation? That like all these oil mills are like broken in a fraction of time, that it's 2-3 weeks. So the Chinese are complaining and they don't want to buy anymore oil, because the Russian oil industries is completely not trustable. So what is the problem? You can have all the material that you want, but the problem is that there is no high quality product made in Russia. It was imported. So technically what the Russian economy have to sell is commodities, but not technology. So to completely exchange from one supplier to another one. Let's explain in the new thing and then close. I heard an interview about Ford, a Ford manager that was talking about the Ford Mustang electric. Only for understand, and then we will close. Okay, difference between Tesla and Ford Mustang electric. Let's say that it's a new electrical car made in Russia. So Ford Mustang electric has a single problem. They have 150 supplier of pieces. Every supplier have their own software with a different language that had to interact with the other 149 suppliers. So Tesla made everything it's made by Tesla. So one only language, everything it's made by themselves and whatever. So what is happening if 10 suppliers will stop to give their product to Ford? It will be impossible to replace them, because there is not a way to let's say make them communicate. This is a huge problem that the market have with Taiwan companies, because like the semiconductors is made there. If everything is interrupted, it's a cheap problem. Also now, if you want to buy a new car in Europe, the time of having it's I don't know, 9 months, 12 months, because there is lack of chip. So not because there is lack of car parts. So what we can finish about it, I agree with you. The problem is could be a strategy of make the Crimea starving about let's say resources, but everything it's problematic because I don't see the timing that it's happening. The momentum it's past for me. I don't know, it's too slow, but it's too slow also for the patience of both parts. So everybody is expecting something like Kharkiv last year, and but as war in Ukraine said, these things happened for incompetence and logistics, not for like real battle victories. So it could be the same. The Kerch Bridge could be a logistical victory, like to cut off the eastern suppliers of Crimea. But on field, I feel very difficult for the Ukrainians to pass the lines without losing a lot of people. So let's see. So Cheng, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for everybody that was here in the live and that will be later in the video. I will send the video to you so you can share if you want. If anybody have any question, just put in the comments and go on the channel of Cheng Wei Lai. You can find the Twitter account. He has also YouTube. And see you soon for the next roundtable. We will have some surprises in the next month, and I will host one live also in Azerbaijan and in Georgia in the next 20 days. So I will let you know. So thank you, Cheng. Thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much.
And see you soon.
Thank you.